Okay, so before we dive into our conversation, let me just quickly recap your background, some of your experiences, and the interests that you have in society and technology. That could take a long time, but I'm going to do it quickly. So you're a member of AI for Good Commission at the United Nations. You're the ambassador for the X Prize Foundation in Europe, focused on AI and the Avatar prizes.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the past, you've also worked for Hyperloop on their goal to make supersonic transport a reality, something I'm still looking forward to. Okay.
Me too.
So many of you know Alexandre as a technologist, but you're also passionate about art and creativity. Okay, and how we blend these two things together to do and extend what I believe you call our collective imaginations.
Yeah, well, definitely. Most of our work actually at ANIMA, that we define as a moonshot studio, is basically about producing moonshots, a moonshot being some kind of radical innovation, if you may, always about radical change, can be opposed to, let's say, linear innovation. And we used to define it since maybe the Apollo mission as a bold effort to achieve a seemingly impossible task, fostering radical innovation in the way. What's interesting to me is that the way for radical innovation to build such moonshots need as much creativity as you would need understanding of the problem that we face, and sometimes technology, but not always. So this is why we're working at this very intersection of understanding the huge challenges we face ahead, trying to design and draft a radical vision for the future, positive, in order to use the technologies, not just for techno gadgets and so forth, but really to move forward towards this vision and tackling some of these issues. So,
okay, can you give me an example
Definitely.
of a moonshot in the context of AI for good?
Yeah, definitely. So, as I just mentioned, in order to tackle those huge challenges, some of the time we can use technology. To tackle those huge challenges, we believe that we need more intelligence because of the wicked problem, the interconnected problems that we face, and AI can be part of the way. So for the past years, we've worked with the United Nations on the AI for Good Commission and Global Summit in order to see how AI could help the United Nations agencies solve for the Sustainable Development Goals. So for instance, we have a major work related to some of the stuff that we've seen so far on satellite imagery and AI, so that machine learning algorithms could basically learn about past images in order to predict future disasters, in order to work also with microinsurance companies, for instance, to analyze the soils and be able to give microinsurance in fields that we wouldn't have insurance before.
Right.
So a lot of fields in which we understood that AI, because it is a general purpose technology, as electricity was and is still, is able to actually tackle the 17 SDGs. So it's been 4 years, it's the fourth year. This year, each time we tackle 2 of the Sustainable Development Goals. This year I'll be leading the track on climate change, climate action, and it's been a great journey so far.
Okay, so we've heard moonshots a couple of times throughout the day. My question is, do we need moonshots, okay? Given the number of real-world challenges that we face here today, maybe we need Earth shots, okay? I know that you're addressing these challenges through the work that you're doing with AI Commons. But AI Commons is relatively new, I think. Can you tell us more about this initiative and its goals?
Well, I definitely agree with you. Maybe the term, the noun moonshot is not right still, but I guess this idea of shooting to the moon, even if it's to come back in order to have a radical vision at some point and to backcast from that vision opportunities of today is still really important. But definitely, and even the way to solve present problems and past issues that we've had can actually come from future vision and not just trying to build a future that will be about solving past problems in a way. So when we work with the United Nations, we are exactly in this kind of Earthshot design, if you may, tackling the 17 SDGs, going from cities to poverty to climate action. And what we understood in the past years is that, as I mentioned, we see so many projects worldwide using AI, tackling those issues and proving radical projects. The problem is that to face these problems, we need more intelligence, but not just AI. We definitely need more collective intelligence, and we need to make sure that everyone could access the capabilities of AI in order to solve for some problem themselves. So this is why last year we announced at the United Nations a non-profit that we created that is called the AI Commons. And it's basically about going from AI for good to AI for all. Because we understand AI as a common good, and we want to see how it can benefit as many people in society. So the AI Commons is basically a platform to share and access data, algorithm, and computing power.
So this is totally open source?
Well, not always. Open source can be a part of a commons, but you could build communities of intents that don't want to open source all the images. For instance, we saw satellite imagery before. Obviously, because of military sovereignty reasons, you cannot open source all kind of satellite imagery. So the commons principle is more about how to govern, how to maintain, and basically manage an asset that is a common good. And we believe AI is a common good. So how could we build communities so that we use this technology for the greater good, but not just waiting for big companies to solve our problems, but also being part of it? This is the purpose.
Okay, excellent. So sort of democratizing AI and put it out there for the commons, which is something that we touched on in an earlier,
better definition.
Earlier panel. But it's a new initiative then. Okay?
Yeah, it is.
So where are you at right now? What are your immediate goals, and what are you working on for the next couple of years?
So I'm actually just back from the UN right now. We are working on it in different focus groups. So we announced the initiative last year. We are launching it this year. It's co-founded by Yoshua Bengio, Stuart Russell, Amir Bani Fatemi, and other visionaries. And so what we want to do this year is to build the building block of the platform. So we are looking at 3 frameworks. One is communities of intent, to make sure that we work with the problem owners and not people looking at problems from the other side of the world. Then the other side of work that we have is on sharing resources, how to build licenses. For those of you who know about the Creative Commons, for instance, how do we do an analogy from licenses in the art world towards the computer science world? And the last part is about scaling AI for good. So we've seen so many great initiatives in AI for good for the past years. That's wonderful. But what we've seen also is that somehow they duplicate from countries to another, and there is some kind of competition in the for good community. And so here the idea is like how to go from local solution to global initiative, and to do so we need to have an infrastructure that is about building community, sharing resources, and helping existing projects scale to other countries. So it is the work groups that we have. And next year we will focus on the 2 first prototypes, Project 0, Project 1, we were discussing those yesterday. Mostly about an infrastructure for satellite imagery, because it can tackle so many challenges, and we want to make sure that citizens can be part of the game.
Mm-hmm. I think that's super important also, in this idea of the AI for all, because it does seem to be that it is used as almost a competitive lever today. Oh, I'm using AI. Oh, I've been able to get AI resources. Whereas, in fact, there are large swathes of industry that don't have access to those resources, but yet still want to be part of the AI game as such.
Definitely. And again, it's about how to build a coalition that will intersect the problem owners, the people really living the problems we're talking about with those big SDGs, then the, let's say, solution providers and sometimes like data providers, and people that would be able to do this link in order to, as entrepreneurs, build local solutions. So definitely, it's about, I will take your notes, democratizing AI for all, in a way. But it's the goal, at least.
Okay. So we've talked about some of the frameworks that have been built, and AI for Commons is one of them. Can you give me a real-world example of where AI has been used for impact, maybe on one of the SDGs or positive impact out there?
Definitely. So I mentioned a work group that we are working on right now, and I'm actually leading on how can we basically go from satellite observation to climate action. We've been really good at analyzing those satellite images for the past few years, and it's actually really useful to see climate change accelerating and so on. Then the question is, how from this understanding can we build global services such as the weather forecast is a global service that you can use anywhere in the world, towards predicting flooding, towards activating communities in order to fight not just the consequences, but also the causes of all of this. In the past years, I've also led a work group on cities. What we've seen is that in most cases, AI, through really simple and basic algorithms, could help us have a tremendous impact on resources and energy. Because a lot of cities, because they don't have yet proper, let's say, intelligent or smart grids or whatever, are still burning energy for nothing in places that have no people in some rooms, etc., etc. We've seen a tremendous number of impact also in education, of course, to see how AI could help personalize the content and make sure that in places in which you don't have enough teachers, maybe through tablets and so on, you could personalize this. Even to a subject you mentioned, I'm fond of art, to which we're working on with ANIMA, is the intersection also between creation and AI. That to me is really important to try and understand. This is, for instance, generative design and other kind of softwares, where we see how AI could basically enhance almost the imagination of a group of designers and so on, to build and help build new forms, new colors and so on, and that sometimes is part of a solution. So to me, it was like kind of beautiful to see all of this space for impact. Now, all we need to do is build a platform so that it can scale.
That's really interesting, because I think one of the things we hear about from AI is that it's going to take our jobs, you know. But I've come at this from a very maybe rose-tinted but sort of optimistic perspective. Is like, okay, well, maybe I'll be able to do more interesting work because the AI can do all the laborious tasks. And as such, I can be more creative. But what you've just talked about is then how being more creative, AI could help me be more creative, and maybe we could even open up a virtuous circle loop.
Definitely. What you mentioned here to me is so important. Like, you could look at it in two ways, and actually most of the research in economics is still looking at how AI impact the world, the work world, in terms of replacement and so on. But so if the challenge is work, if the technology is AI, then the radical vision that you want to have is maybe not replacing humans with machines, but how to enhance humans so that we can basically work better together. We can stop working as machines. A lot of tasks that we do every day are better done with machines, and are tasks that we don't like and don't want to do. I really love a sentence from Norbert Wiener. He's the father of cybernetics. In 1948, he was asked kind of the same question. Like, someone asked him, but please, with all the systems you're trying to build and so on, you're replacing humans. And he said, my friends, if a machine can take your job, you're a machine. And to me, it's quite interesting, meaning that human beings never stopped creating tools to free ourselves in the end, to make sure that we can go in certain direction. And I want to think that we can design AI in a way, positively, that can free us for part of the jobs that we don't want to do, and maybe getting for some people in a more creative way. But maybe others will want to keep it this way.
AI
so it's
for
about
creativity, in fact.
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
We've just got 2 minutes left. I have a very quick final question for you. Knowing that you're a futurist, okay, I want to imagine that we're here on the Change Now stage in 2025. Okay?
Yeah.
Will we still be having the AI for good, or AI for common good, discussion? Okay, given the speed at which the technology is advancing, but more than that, the speed at which it's being integrated into society, what kind of questions do you think we're going to be asking on this stage? What goals will we be working towards in 2025?
That's really interesting. I think if all of us together succeed as a community in the tech for good, etc., I hope we will never have to talk more about for good, which means that all the rest is for bad in a way. It's kind of weird, right? You have people working in the for good industry, and then what's next? So if we succeed all together, we will never talk about this, and this will be the KPI. Like, for success, we know it's going to be over. I hope we will still talk about commons. You know, the 17th Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations agenda is called Partnership for the Goals. That's really interesting to me. Like, you look at all the challenges and you see real problems that we need to solve. And the 17th is Partnership for the Goals, how to better work together. And this, to me, is the thing that we will still have in 5 years, working in community, find toolbox and mechanism frameworks on the commons to make sure we work together. And what I hope is that we could focus this kind of amazing event on vision, meaning we know the problem, we know the technology as commodities, I hope, in the future, and maybe we can all share, just as human beings, the kind of vision we want to share for the future. So focusing on imagination would be my hope.
Thank you very much. I look forward to welcoming you back here in 2025 and having that conversation. Thank you, Alexandre.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you soon.